Okay, now we needed a pope. We needed a pope to come along. Okay? We needed a pope to come along to organize all this stuff. Here we have this great learning going on. The clergy monopolized learning. And so we needed somebody to come in and put it all together. Pope Gregory I did this. And in 14 very busy years, Pope Gregory organized the text and the music for the early Christian church. His reign was from 590 to 604. Now, when I say the liturgy, okay, organize the liturgy, I mean that the liturgy establishes the annual religious calendar, okay, but also the order of service and the specific text for virtually every waking hour of the day. Now, this, my friends, is a huge undertaking. So for the third Sunday after Epiphany, or the second Sunday after Trinity, you're going to have specific words that you'll hear in your Sunday Mass. But let's say it's Christmas Day, you're going to hear different texts. If it's Easter, you're going to hear different words. And so this was huge. He did so much to try to organize all of this. Okay? And that's what he did. He organized the text, the liturgy, for the church. Now, I know you guys have probably heard of the Mass. The Mass is a public worship service, okay? Public worship service. So if you lived in 610 and you went to Mass on Sunday, your texts that you would hear, there would be a lot of them that are the same, and there would be some that might be different. Okay? The texts that you would hear every Sunday are called the ordinary. Okay? And we're going to do this, and it's the reason why I'm bringing this in is because we're going to hear these words over and over, especially on this, the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. We're going to hear these words, so that's why I'm doing this. You will not be tested on this specifically. All right? It's very difficult to try to get through there. Ordinary. Think about the word ordinary. Ordinary every day. So when you show up for Mass in 610, you're going to hear a Kyrie, Gloria, Sanctus, Agnus Dei, Credo. 5 texts, the same ones, every Sunday. And that's going to unify you as a human being. Because, you know, it's a pretty dark time. There's a lot of bad stuff going on, but you know what? I'm going to hear that Kyrie. Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison, Kyrie eleison. Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy, Lord have mercy. Those are great words. And they helped people. And so these words that you hear every Sunday were very important. Now, the proper, the opposite of the ordinary is the proper. And this is very simple. If I am living in 610 and it is December 25th, what day is it? Christmas, right? And so I'm going to hear different words. We're probably going to mention the birth of Jesus, right? Yeah. Okay. We might or might not mention it on, you know, February 12th. But we know that we're going to hear specific text on Christmas Day. Okay? And so that's the difference in text. Some you hear every Sunday, some you hear on appropriate days. And here are, the ones on the left are important because you're going to see them and you're going to hear the music behind them. Whether that be some anonymous composer, Mozart, Verdi, all of them composed Kyries. It's a word you're going to hear again. And I already told you what is involved with that text. Okay? Now, the other side, the proper, those are 3. There are a lot more. Okay? There are a lot more. It's everything else besides the text you see on the left. Okay? And this could get very, very confusing, but I'm not going to let it get confusing. All right? And so The only reason why I produce this to you is because you're going to hear these words a lot. And you're going to see these words and hear these words set to music. Okay? Now, do you have to know the credo and recite it on a test for me? Never. We probably won't even talk about the credo ever again. We'll talk about Gloria in Excelsis Deo. We've all heard those words before, right? Okay, so that's why you're looking at this. And all of this will come full circle as we go through the Middle Ages. Okay, now, this specific chant, now I'm going to add another word to that, Gregorian chant, right? That's how we know this stuff. And I know that was been on your minds. Well, you're not calling it Gregorian chant. Well, now that I've introduced Pope Greg to you, get it? But he didn't compose those chants. He's not a composer. He's a collector and he's an organizer. You know, he should get a fair shake because he did a lot, but he didn't do that much. A lot of these chants are anonymous. A lot of these chants are from England, they're from Spain, they're from France, they're from Italy, they're from all over the place. And what he did was to collect them. And there are thousands of them. And here we go again. Alleluia, vidimus stellum. We have seen his star. One more time. Alleluia. The text that you have just been listening to, Alleluia, Alleluia, we have seen his star in the east and are come with gifts to worship the Lord, Alleluia. Okay? And so it is a very, very beautiful commentary as far as the music goes on that text. And so we're looking at great expression, but we're looking at certainly spiritual expression. Okay, so Gregorian chant, official music of the Catholic Church. Now, as we go along here, be careful. Make sure you know what is sacred and what is secular. Sacred means what? Inside the church. Secular means outside the church. Sacred, secular. So far, the only thing in our sacred category, Gregorian chant. And we have listened to one. Okay? Music outside the church. This is a tough one because, you know, we have just been talking about Pope Gregory in 590 or to 604. We're still fairly early. Secular music, as we know, the monks are the ones that are educated. And so as the common people start to become educated, as we go towards the 11th, 12th, 13th centuries, we're going to see secular music start to be written down, start to have notation. Okay? And so, what is secular music? Well, if you go to your car and turn on your radio, you're going to hear Whitney Houston, you're going to hear a song, right? This is real basic, guys. When you go to a club, you dance. That's another real basic thing, right? Entertainment. We also have instrumental music. We are going to see the very, very, very general rise of instrumental music. Very general, and it's going to be very slow right now, but it will be very fast as we get into the Renaissance. So, sacred, if you hear something that's Latin, it is going to be sacred. Secular, now if you hear French or you hear Spanish, it's going to be something that probably is secular, right? Okay, so keep these categories under control. Now, let's take first secular song, very quickly. Secular song. Secular song in the Middle Ages. Monophonic, same thing. One line of music. One line of music. Very simple, probably repetitive. It is always sung in the vernacular. Now, that's going to be a big word. Vernacular. Vernacular means what? The language of the particular country or region. If we are walking around in downtown Madrid, we're going to hear a song in what language? Right. If we're walking in downtown London, what are we going to hear? English, right? So it's vernacular simply means wherever you are. Okay? I'll always let you guys know where you are. Okay? I promise. These are songs not about, well, they could be about heaven or hell, but it's not a spiritualness that you have with chant. They're usually about love, about war, about chivalry, saving the woman from doom. Right? They probably had, and this is a guess, because nobody knows, really, they probably had some kind of improvised accompaniment to them. What accompaniment? We don't know. But we do have some clue that that did exist. By the 12th and 13th centuries, we have French nobles, and don't write this down, called trouvères and troubadours. These guys were traveling musicians. They traveled from kingdom to kingdom, and they were also the gossip columnists as well, because you didn't have any newspapers, so they brought gossip from kingdom to kingdom. They also entertained, and they probably did some magic tricks. They probably did a lot of different things. They were entertainers. And so some of these melodies that we have, and these troubadours and trouvères, were all around France. We have some melodies that have been preserved, okay? And again, these are one-line melodies, except they're a lot more rhythmic. We'll see a lot more rhythm involved with secular song, okay? And that's very important. Now, on the other side, we also have instrumental music and dance music, okay? Instrumental music and dance music. Dance music, usually a one-line melody as well. And, of course, had instruments. These instruments could be bowed instruments, plucked instruments, wind instruments, organs, or percussion instruments. They are not like our modern instruments that we see today. They are forerunners to the forerunners. We're talking about very early instruments, okay? Very early instruments. And as a matter of fact, we're going to hear an actual recording of some of these early instruments. The example that we're going to listen to is called Estampie. It is from the 13th century, and it's one of the earliest surviving forms of instrumental music. Could this be danced to? Oh, you betcha. We all have to think of ourselves at this wild party with a glass of wine or a glass of orange juice in our hand, dancing like maniacs to this wonderful instrumental music. So we've all got lots of food in our bellies, and here we have an Estampie. We're going to hear a triple meter, triple, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and a very strong, very fast beat. And so this is one of the earliest surviving forms of instrumental music. Yeah, question? No, no, I don't know what mode it's in, and it doesn't really matter at this point. When there's a development within the church, then I'll tell you when we start to see things change that way. Most of the development at this point is going to be within the church as far as harmony, adding triads, things like that, okay? And so Dorian doesn't apply to this, because what's much more interesting is the tambourine at this point, okay? So this is Estampie. Can you hear that in church at this point? Absolutely not. Okay, absolutely not. We'd be in a lot of trouble. But that was dance music. Okay, now, okay, we're ahead of ourselves a little bit with secular music. Remember, secular music took longer to certainly become notated, all right? And so now we're going to go back and we're going to see some of the developments in the church, okay? And we're going to see the development from monophonic music to polyphonic music. If mono means one, poly means what? Right. Hallelujah. If some monk wasn't bored and figured out a way not to get in trouble by the Pope, to combine one more line of music, there would be no Beatles. You know, we wouldn't have harmony, you know. So this was an amazing development, and somewhere between 700, I don't know, 900 or so, it's very hard to detect, but the first steps were taken in a revolution that eventually transformed Western music. What they did was they added a second line of music to a pre-existing chant line. So let's have in our mind a straight line. This straight line is a pre-existing chant line. This is something that has existed for a very long time. We've heard it, oh, Sunday, lots. We've heard the monks sing it. We've heard the monks chant it. But one day, Father Joe was singing this melody. And then he thought, hey, Father Mac, come here. Look what I did. Oh my goodness. What is that? It's going to be all the rage. I know it is. So you take this chant that already exists and you add another line of music. Now, how can this be done? Well, if you didn't use any dissonance, right, the popes wouldn't mind. So what you did was you used the intervals that are called consonant intervals. The consonant intervals, which I explained last class. Fourth. Ah, that's not upsetting, is it? It's very open. Fifth. That isn't either. It's very open. It's very spiritual. Octave, no big deal. And unison, right? So if we do that, if we start with that, maybe nobody will get upset. It'll still contribute to the spirit of worship. But we, as monks / composers, whatever we are, can have some fun in our little monastery, right? And so what we have is the development of polyphonic music. At this point as well, the church stable and unified. Okay, stable and unified. We are coming out of the Dark Ages. We are coming into the rise of cities like Paris, for example, a very important city of culture. Public education, right? The common people becoming more educated, not just the clergy. So we're going to see eventually, right, we're going to see a boom in secular music. Paris, a very important city of culture. Between 900 and 1200, we finally have the first type of polyphonic music. And this type of polyphonic music was called organum. Organum. It is the first type of polyphonic music. Now, the two composers, and I say composer, we haven't talked about a composer yet. We've talked about a lot of anonymous monks, right? And now we finally have our first two composers. These guys worked in the great city of culture at the time, Paris, and they worked between 1100 and 1250. I know that's a long time, but we really don't know the birth and the death of Leonin and Peretin. Leonin is older, Peretin comes next. And so between these two guys, we have the birth of polyphonic music. And they really knew what to do with it. They added a melody that became independent, and it had a melodic curve of its own. So we're adding in a whole new expression, but this expression still spiritual. No harmony, guys. No harmony yet. No triads. Remember that triad thing? You guys are going to be begging me for a triad next time. Please play a complete chord. We're not going to have a complete chord for a long time still. The University of Paris attracted scholars, and the Cathedral of Notre Dame. Think about that supreme monument, right? That supreme monument of Gothic architecture, and that was the place that held our first real composers And these composers actually belonged to a school and was called the Notre Dame School. And they did a lot of experimentation. They also, very important to know here, is that they also notated rhythm. And so now, not only do we have a system of notation we can understand, but we also have a system of rhythmic notation we can understand. So things are becoming very, very well organized. Now comes the time where we have to listen to it. Okay? And this is really, it's not always everybody's favorite, that's for sure. Here is your definition of organum. What you will often hear with organum is a drone tone, okay? A real live drone tone. Let's take the word alleluia. The first syllable is al. And so what would happen is the chant line would be the slow alleluia. And what you would have is ah. And then over that ah is a faster moving line. Okay? So the slower line is the chant line, something that's been in existence for a while. And the faster line is something that's been newly composed, you see. And so we're going to look at a piece of organum, specifically by Perotin, who is the younger of the two. And this piece is simply called Alleluia Nativitas, which means the birth, and it was written, well, we don't really know, but around 1200, around 1200. What did you think of that? Can you hear that being sung at the Notre Dame Cathedral? What that must have sounded like in that big, huge, glorious open space. It still had that spirituality to it. So, of course, nobody was looking, but this was a huge revolution. And so I want to play for you really quickly the original chant line, okay? And that's what you were listening to on the bottom. And I know that's hard to figure out, but this is the original chant. This is the Alleluia. Something like that, okay? And so what they did was, that bottom line was the Alleluia, was that chant, okay? And there were two faster lines above with an actual rhythm. La, 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 la. Actually had some rhythm to it, which is very interesting. So we have come very far in a very, well, it wasn't a short amount of time. We've waited a long time for this. You know, if this is 1200, not only do we finally have our more than one line of music, we also have a system of notating rhythm as well. Okay. Next class, we will begin the Ars Nova. So everything's fine now. The church is stable. But as we go to the century preceding the Renaissance, it will be a time of great change, great diversity, and again, a rebirth of a very dark time. Okay?